Hello and welcome to Clearance Rate, a full wrap of the nation's residential property sales over the last week. And we're starting to see a bit of a shift in selling habits with less properties being put up for auction, especially in Melbourne. Sydney's still dominating, however, on the auction market front, with the clearance rate there up over 80%. The number of auctions in the other capital cities really coming off over the last week. Brisbane's clearance rate, especially of note, dropping to 35.5%. Melbourne at 73.7%, Adelaide at 57.1% and Perth at just 30%. In terms of private house sales, this is where we've seen a lot of the action this week. A huge 3,083 homes being sold in Sydney, pushing the median house price there up to $800,000. In Melbourne, a very healthy amount of homes were sold, pushing the price in the southern capital to over $500,000. Perth not too far behind in terms of price, Brisbane following with a solid number of sales, and Adelaide well down this week. On the apartment front, private treaty sales also dominating, with over 2,000 units sold in Sydney alone. That median price well up on last week and also setting a new record high of $628,000, which is significantly more than the median house price of all other capital cities. Now, close to 1,200 apartments have been sold in Melbourne, pushing the median price there to almost $450,000. In terms of price direction, Melbourne is starting to show signs of stabilisation with weekly growth of just 0.2%. That's pushed the annual growth rate down to 6%. Now, the other smaller cities also continuing their drop in home values, really over accentuating the split between the Sydney market and the rest of the nation. As you can see, Sydney charging forward with double-digit growth rates for the 12 months. It's really solidly performing and showing no sign of easing off anytime soon. For those of you wondering just what it is about Sydney that makes people pay such a premium for property, this week's little sticky beak might help you understand. Now, while some of these properties aren't what you'd call desirable, it's all about location, 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 the famous three words. Sydney's eastern suburbs, the most desirable place in Australia to live. So that said, this property at 51 Doncaster Avenue in Kensington sold for $320,000 over the set reserve. Demand really pushing it up. The 1950s three-bedroom house is on just 405 square metres. It went for $1.92 million. A three-bedroom Bronte house in desperate need of renovation has also sold for a huge $3.35 million at auction. Check it out. The home at 8 Trafalgar Street is located on two separate titles spanning 580 square metres. It was bought by a family who'll renovate the home. So the millions already spent is literally just for the land and the location. Bronte is a very popular beachside suburb with a solid market. It attracts high dollars due to the fact that it's one of the few Sydney beaches that offers a family lifestyle, as opposed to the more transient backpacker or young crowd that Bondi, Coogee or Manly attract. The median house price for the suburb is $2,262,500, so pretty high. It's also seen growth of 15.1% over the last 12 months. That's above the average Sydney growth rate. And finally, if people are paying multi-millions for these types of properties, it's understandable why the prestige end of the market is starting to get a bit of life pumped back into it. This stunning harbourfront property, likely a knockdown, believe it or not, going for $15.3 million. That's after it smashed through its reserve by $1.8 million. Now, that is more my style, but all I do need to do is win the lotto. Plenty more clearance rate again next week. See you then.